Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is Infopedia, the first podcast about knowledge and information. I'm one of your co-hosts, Crage 2.
I'm Frankie.
And I'm T-Fed.
Together, we form the Infopedia Nation. And thank you all for donating to our Patreon. We're almost at $10,000 a day. If you guys keep up the donations like this, we'll be well on our way to affording our first podcaster streamer village.
Before we start, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Lucky Strike Cigarettes. Lucky Strike is known for their high quality farm fresh goods. They deliver straight to your door in a box.
And the price can't be beat.
The price cannot be beat.
So everyone buy Lucky Strike
cigarettes, please.
And don't forget to use coupon code PEDIA333 for 20% off your first purchase of a pack.
And don't forget to use PEDIA444 for 90% off your ninth purchase.
And please do not use the coupon code PEDIA1 because that's old, and if you put it in, there's going to be a bug in the system and we'll get yelled at again. So
I don't want to be yelled at again. Please pay attention.
I kind of want to be yelled at.
The reason is because
if you want to yell at Frankie,
emails.
Send Frankie an email. Their social security number will be in the description of this podcast.
All right. So on to the show. All right, so today's topic is one that's very near and dear to our hearts. It is Pop-Tarts. You know, we all have Pop-Tarts every so often. I love to go to Ralph's and buy some for myself, but there's a lot of interesting history behind it and a lot of potential in the future for them. I guess we'll get into that in later into the podcast.
We've got a lot of Pop-Tart facts coming your way, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Don't touch that dial.
Starting with the history of Pop-Tarts, right? So we all know that Pop-Tarts have been a classic breakfast pastry.
Oh, undeniably an institution of the breakfast table.
When you think of America, I mean,
it's just Pop-Tarts and Raytheon.
But what if we told you that Pop-Tarts were discovered not in America, but in Mexico?
It's quite incredible, actually. So, History 101, we all learn about the Yarit people of Mexico. But did you know that in 1629, the Tartepopo people were discovered by the Spanish on their first voyage to the New World?
Yeah, and it's actually really interesting because I learned recently when I was researching this that that Tartepopo, people think of it as like the name of the people, but it was actually also not only just a demonym for them, but also it was the name of all of their kings of the Tartepopo Empire. They were all named like Tartepopo the First, the Second. It's a very complicated and interesting system that they had.
It's one of the few people to ever let a guy be named after a place. So, when in the grand scheme of things, this is probably one of the most important kind of name you could have, because not even in the Holy Roman Empire was there a guy named Holy Roman Empire, which is, I think, just a complete disgrace. So, Frankie, why don't you tell us more about the man who discovered the people of Tartepopo?
Right. So, again, going back to 1629, we have our first narco expedition of the Spanish government.
That's interesting. What is that phrase? I've never heard that. What is a narco expedition?
A narco expedition is when a group of elites kind of fund their own private expedition to find new substances from around the world, like the spice trade, but kind of more of a gray market situation, black market situation.
So is this similar to like the expeditions that were set out to find like estrogen and those kinds of drugs, or is it more of like an Advil kind of thing?
That's a great question. I think that the estrogen trade with feudal Mongolia was actually a sort of a byproduct of what their real goal was, which was to get opium from the Chinese. So one of the more interesting things people don't really know about Spain is that they were the most hedonistic country in all of Europe at the time in the early 1600s. The Spanish were responsible for the modern traditions we have today, such as Nocturnal Wonderland and Burning Man. And
Electric Daisy Carnival. Which was actually by the French. Sorry that I'm wrong again. Oh,
but
shit.
That's okay. In any case, the narco expedition set sail in search of the coolest party substances of the New World, which landed them. They were trying to reach India, as we know, because they have psytrance, which was actually invented in the 1500s. But they landed in what is now modern day southern Mexico, where the Tartapopo people lived. Tifed, do you want to explain to us a little bit about the actual substance that they discovered?
Yeah, so the original Pop-Tart, which was also called the Tarte Popo, was made of maize and coagulated jackal blood.
Kind of like a blood pudding, like a savory tart.
Yeah, sort of like it kind of like Jell-O, but more viscous. And the ancient biscuit itself was made from maize, and the maize part itself was made using what they call a smusher, which uses two rocks. One of them is sort of inset on the inside, and one of them is like shaped like a rolling pin. And what you would do is you would sort of roll it into the shape. Back then, Pop-Tarts were much thicker. They were burrito like, and
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
You would never think that looking at a Pop-Tart today.
Yeah, you would never, because I think, but that's one of the most beautiful things about the whole process, and we'll get to the modern interpretation soon enough.
There was also a local variant in Nayarit which used cilantro flakes, and those ended up being pretty much what we call the sprinkles of today.
Wow,
tradition sort of carries through.
That's insane, because they would have no Spaniard would have understood what that was, because Europeans hadn't thought of the idea of eating leaves yet.
They thought that things were green
for a reason.
For like the birds, you know.
That's exactly
That's where
right.
that phrase "for the birds" comes
That's
from.
That's correct.
That's right.
But Frankie, why don't you tell us a little bit about the effects that the Tartapopo confection had on the local people?
Right. So, there's something about the chemical reaction when you introduce hemoglobin to the maize element.
Yeah, the gluten from the maize it creates an incredibly powerful hallucinogenic compound.
It essentially ionizes, binds together, and oxidizes.
Amazing.
So what they would do is when they eat it, right, it has an onset of about 2 minutes. And
50 days.
Would happen, well, that's how long it would.
That's right.
Well, it back then it did. Nowadays it's more just like a week.
Days were also faster back then. Most days were only 21 hours instead of 24.
True, because of the calendar system.
Because of the calendar system.
Right.
But there was I think the most interesting part of the story is the phenomena that occurred because the people of the Tartapopo region had very specific gut biomes from drinking Amazonian or North Amazonian water. The hallucinogenic effect was actually not strictly from the confection itself, and actually was a lot of part of their own bodies, which was not explained or understood by the explorers who were, first of all, pretty much drug cowards. Most of these people were sailors. They weren't the chemists themselves. They weren't trying to track it down. But when they asked about this, they saw people tripping, and I think that one of the quotes was, and this is translated from Spanish, "That looks fucking sick, dude. We gotta take these back. They're gonna be rolling so hard." So they obtained this jackal blood. They preserved it. And they took the corn or the maize from this New World and they brought it back to Spain. But things didn't go exactly how they expected.
Well, before we get into that, I'd also like to introduce the actual person who founded from the Spanish expedition, Marquín Pinto Codex III. MP3 Codex is how he's historically referred to. He did find it, but he was executed immediately because he didn't pay for his boat trip. Does someone else want to take that?
Well, it wasn't just that though. It was the fact that once that Marquín had brought the Tarte Popo delicacy to the elites who had funded his narco expedition, they tried it and nothing happened because their gut flora wasn't attuned to the local flora and fauna.
They would not understand what caused that phenomena until the invention of Life Aid kombucha in 2013, when the idea of the gut biome was manufactured by
Big Stomach.
By Big Stomach. That's right. So it was a huge disaster.
Yeah, it actually, despite the Tarte Popo not actually really surviving in its original form in Europe, the incident was so famous across the country that there was a joke pastry called, again, the Tarte Popo, which was used as a prank for prank day.
Yeah, it was a lot like the semi-racist tradition in Sweden of Black Peter. In which a person wearing black face paint visits people's houses and gives them presents, which is obviously by modern standards a the villainous and racist depiction, but by their standards was just another fun, cool thing you could do. So similarly, children would take fake drugs and trip out in the street, but it was all just sort of a lollygagging sort of just a fun sort of situation for the kids, and it's sort of like modern day trick or treating.
Oh, by the way, I forgot
comparison. By the way,
I forgot to mention this, but the ship that Marco traveled on was the Santa Lollygagger.
The Santa Lollygagger, one of the most important naval vessels ever to sail the sea. Even though it only had one voyage, which was to Tarte Popo, and it was immediately capsized intentionally. It was a bit of it's just kind of a Catholic thing. They christen the ship and they take it into the world.
They baptize the ship.
They baptize the ship. But they baptized the whole. They realized they didn't baptize the whole ship, so they had to get the whole thing down in there. Yeah. Did not come back up, but it's still remembered to this day as one of the most glorious battleships to ever sail to Tarte Popo.
Yeah. Quick side note: I actually took a scuba tour of that sunken ship on my third honeymoon.
That's incredible. That's fantastic. And how is Crage?
They're so good, by the way.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Crage, really happy to hear that.
Allergic to Pop-Tarts, but
it's a damn shame. So let's flash forward a little bit here. So this tradition has existed in Spain for approximately 200 years, and then an American would come to sort of invent something that was almost exactly the same, using a completely unrelated but coincidentally similar sort of historical context. So, in 1801 p.m., there was a man named Francis Richard Kellogg, who was the son of a wealthy food manufacturing mogul. He was of a vehemently anti-racist civil rights activist whose family and organization funded the Union during the American Civil War. Even though he was later become estranged and basically we like the kind of the canceled of that generation for being a carpet pollywogger, which is there's not really a direct translation because we don't really have a lot of concrete first party examples of what this means, but we speculate that it was essentially the like a gigavirgin beta orbiter of the modern world, which was enough to undermine his noble,
his
cause,
credibility,
his credibility as a hero to the Union cause.
We also know Kellogg's, of course, for Frosty Flakes. Something I actually learned recently is that it's not actually the pastry dough was actually made from vinegar. He invented the process for converting vinegar into bread
sludge.
dough.
Yeah,
sludge, like a sort of
that's
like.
When I learned that, I could not believe it.
I was like, that's where sludge comes from.
I know that the sludge we see every day.
I always thought it was wheat, but it turns out it's actually calcified vinegar.
But yeah, Frosty Flakes launched the company into success. They essentially had a monopoly on both vinegar and what?
They had a sleeper hold on it. That's just echoing your
Oh yeah, a sleeper hold on it. So, Frankie, would you like to tell us about how Kellogg rediscovered the Pop-Tart?
Yes, I love. This is my favorite part of the story. So, Francis Richard Kellogg was taking a sort of could maybe be considered an anthropological tour of the Nayarit region of Mexico, as rich people did every now and then. With their money as a sort of productive vacation, really.
Yeah.
So upon getting some rapport with the local natives, the Tartepopo people showed them their namesake treat. And
really?
Yes. However, he was not able to actually eat it because he was coughing so much.
That's right. And one of the other things is, despite the fact that he couldn't eat it, he was fascinated by the way that it looked. And he didn't see anyone else eat it either, which, according to the historical records that were of the era that the Tartepopo people can take, they have like a ledger of everyone who's ever consumed it.
Yeah, it used to be much more ooey gooey.
Yeah, that's right. But he loved the way that it looked. He liked the way that when you broke it in half, you could see the red coagulated material, like sort of, it like would look a little melty. So that inspired him to introduce a new product for the Western world, which became modern day Pop-Tarts. Which is what, but of course, he didn't even speak Spanish. He couldn't even ask them what it was made of, but he just knew he had to make something that looked just like it. And by sheer force of coincidence, he invented a food that was identical to the Spanish Pop-Tart traditional joke food, which gained massive popularity in the United States nearly overnight and would have actually basically ended the Civil War instantly had it not been for racism.
Right, which gets so often in the way of most things. Sorry, I didn't want to overlook the glaring fact that, of course, Pop-Tarts as we know them today are not savory. They are sweet.
That's right.
This comes from that initial misunderstanding on the part of Francis Richard Kellogg, or FRK, as I'll probably end up referring to him from now on. FRK, upon the ceremonial cracking open of the Tartepopo, saw the red and assumed that it was more of a jam, like a, what is it? Like a marmalade or a preserve, if you will. So he thought that it was sweet because he didn't really even know. He also didn't even know that the dough was maize. He thought it was flour.
Of course.
But then later on, and we're talking decades later, Kellogg realized that the original Tartepopo, that's not flour, that's maize, that's corn. And so they thought, well, we're looking for a new product. And that, again, ties back to Frosty Flakes. That's where that maize comes in. That corn product we all know and love from Kellogg.
Yeah, and I didn't know this either, but the jackal blood that was traditionally used, that tradition continues to this day and is held in our modern Pop-Tarts. Jackals were near the brink of extinction, but the Kellogg's company brought it back.
That's pretty incredible.
To farm them.
If you ever have a chance to visit south northern Pennsylvania, you will actually get a chance to see one of the jackal farms where it's really beautiful and quite humane. The jackals are strung from their tails and from birth till death are suspended in the air, where their blood is being drawn and they're fed a consistent diet of that very same maize that is harvested ethically from the Tartapopo region.
And we cannot stress that enough, ethically.
So now that we know a little bit about the history of the Pop-Tarts, what is next in Pop-Tart technology?
You know what I'm excited about?
What's that?
They've got this. They just announced the cricket filling.
Oh,
I am so excited.
A bug flavor.
Yeah, but and I hear that when you eat it, you get like your throat makes a little chirping noise.
That's no way.
Oh,
I know,
that's gonna be cool.
I don't even know how it
so
works.
it's like Pop Rocks and Pop Tart,
but it's in your throat.
But Pop Rock Bug Pop Tart rocks for your throat.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Oh my god, I can finally live out my Mongolian throat singing dream.
This is a big opportunity for all Pop-Tart and bug enthusiasts. Mm-hmm. That's really wonderful. But what I think we're most excited about, all the four of us here.
Oh, Frankie, you're so excited for this, aren't you?
I can't freaking wait for this, you guys. I got my ticket yesterday.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, to what?
To Paris Fashion Week.
Oh my god. Well, wait. What's in Paris Fashion Week?
Okay, so this ties back to Pop-Tarts. Pop-Tarts did a collaboration with Thierry Mugler.
Really?
Yes.
Wait.
And who is Thierry Mugler?
For those who don't know, Thierry Mugler is a French fashion guy.
Amazing.
And they decided we have a similar demographic, you know?
Right.
Kids love Pop-Tarts, and they love, if we all know one thing about kids, it's that they love New York Fashion Week.
Exactly.
That's right.
Paris.
In Paris. Mm-hmm. Mommy, Daddy, take me to Disneyland Paris, but also take me to New York Fashion Week.
Oh, I remember that ad campaign.
Who can possibly make both trips? That's why they opened the New York Paris Fashion Exchange exhibition, where Pop-Tart clothing will be exposed to the world for the first time ever. And this is a really big moment for Kellogg's Corporation, because they're also using this opportunity to promote the new film from Illumination Studios. Illumination Studios and their parent company, Sony Entertainment America, bought the rights to popular online comic book character Soy Jack, and they'll be making a Soy Jack movie for the first time. So this is their first opportunity to introduce soy-flavored Pop-Tarts. And this is going to be in ethical fashion, this is a big deal, because for too long, unsustainable meat-based products like cotton and wool were basically the dominant form of clothing that we had available. But now, thanks to Pop-Tarts X Paris Fashion New York Week, we can finally have edible soy Pop-Tart clothing for kids.
Well, that about does it. Don't forget about coupon code
Pedia 999 for 90% off, or
of your ninth
order. Or Pedia 333 for 30% off your first order.
Thank you again to Lucky Strike Cigarettes for sponsoring this. And before we go, guys, would you like to read some listener mail?
Oh, yeah, I can pull up one right here. So we have a listener, Douglas M. from Pensacola, Little Moda, and he asks, fellow Pedians, where do you know when it's going to have as much as you can? I'm a huge signed. Well, I gotta tell you, when it comes down to it, when you want to follow what you think when in your dream, you can only do the best that we have. So always believe in myself.
Truer words.
Oh, you know.
Oh shit, there's another one right here.
Hold me, unzip it from the mailbag.
Oh, perfect.
Here you go.
There's a ruffle around in there for a
Let's
letter.
rustle around
And there you go.
got
Got one for you.
Okay, this one is from Analia Lugosi. She says, "Hey crew, I'm a vampire again. Little help here."
We thought we helped you last time.
This is the third week in a row, isn't it?
It is, and you know what that means.
There's no turning back.
No, you get 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old vampire ball game.
Three lucky strikes and you're out.
And speaking of Lucky Strike,
Thanks.
Sorry,
Shout out to our sponsor once again.
I just love cigarettes.
I'm
addicted to cigarettes. If there's any one thing that I know about myself is that I never want to quit a cigarette. Once I smoke one, I'm smoking the whole dang pack.
One and done? I don't think so.
That's right.
But to get back to the advice, there unfortunately there is no saving you. However, there is a community called the Lucky Vampires that live in Oregon and in a big gorgeous mansion.
They pump people's gas for them.
They pump people's gas for them, and they are looking for more vampires for their industry.
Or commune. Sorry.
Not a cult.
No.
It's green and beautiful over there.
It is. I love Oregon, especially this time of year.
Oregon's good.
Oregon's amazing. One of the most places that we have left. Well, everyone, it's been a fantastic time, and I hope that you guys learned as much as we did. Until next time, this is the Infopedians signing out. I'm Crage 2.
I'm Frankie.
And I'm T-Fed.
See you guys next time.
Where we talk about the murder of Brendan Urie.
Stay info.
Thank you.